You ever have one of those moments where a small, harmless decision suddenly blows up into the biggest neighborhood drama of your life? Well, that was me the day I installed what Karen called the most offensively fancy mailbox she'd ever seen. And trust me, if I'd known a single mailbox would spark a full-scale HOA war, destroy every ounce of patience I had left, and turn my quiet street into a battlefield, I still would have done it. Because this story? Oh, it's worth every second. It all started early on a Saturday morning. I'd finally replaced my old, beaten-up mailbox, something the postal worker had begged me to do for months. I picked a beautiful metal post, a brushed bronze mailbox with a little eagle emblem, nothing outrageous. Elegant, yes, flashy? Not even close. But apparently, to Karen, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, this mailbox personally attacked her entire existence. Not 30 minutes after installation, I heard the click-clack of angry flip-flops marching toward my driveway. I turned around and there she was, arms crossed so tightly it looked like she was trying to strangle herself. "This," she declared, pointing dramatically at the mailbox like it had insulted her family lineage, "is far too fancy for our community standard." I blinked. "It's a mailbox." "No," she snapped. "It is a statement. And in this neighborhood, we do not make statements." I wanted to laugh, because if anyone made statements, it was Karen, usually, in the form of snippy emails written in Comic Sans with 10 exclamation marks at the end of every sentence. She shoved a printed copy of some obscure HOA guideline into my hands, highlighted, underlined, annotated like it was a Supreme Court case. According to her interpretation, all mailboxes must be modest, neutral, and conforming. Yet, when I pointed at 3 houses on the street with mailboxes much fancier than mine, she gave the classic Karen answer. "That's different." Of course it was. I tried to reason with her, but she stormed off, yelling something about immediate citations and emergency board votes. I knew right then this wasn't about the mailbox. This was about control. And Karen hated losing control more than anything, so I made a decision. If she wanted to pick a fight over a too fancy mailbox, then I was going to give her a mailbox she'd never forget. One upgrade, then another, until her eye twitched permanently. And that was the moment this ridiculous, petty, hilarious war officially began. The next morning, before Karen even had the chance to crawl out of bed and rehearse her daily complaints in the mirror, I was already at the hardware store. If she thought my first mailbox was too fancy, then I couldn't wait to see her reaction to what I had planned next, because this time I was done playing defense. This was going to be fun. I walked through the aisles like a man on a mission. Paint? Too basic. Stickers? Too childish. Landscaping additions? Getting warmer. Then I saw it. An ornate cast-iron mailbox topper shaped like a soaring eagle. The kind of decorative piece that looked like it belonged outside a governor's mansion. Not a suburban driveway. Perfect. By noon, the mailbox upgrade was complete. My original bronze mailbox now stood proudly beneath a gleaming eagle. Wings stretched wide like it was announcing victory. It was bold. It was dramatic. It was everything Karen hated. It took exactly 13 minutes for her to appear. I was sipping iced tea on my porch when I heard the sound of her outrage. Approaching, heavy breathing, muttering, footsteps pounding the concrete like an approaching thunderstorm. "What?" she gasped, nearly choking on her own fury. "Have you done?" I gestured casually. "Oh, this? Just a small enhancement. You said it was too fancy before, so I figured, why not lean into it?" She looked like she had swallowed a lemon whole. "This violates at least 6 HOA guidelines." "Oh, which ones?" I asked, already knowing she wouldn't have a real answer. She flipped through her binder. Yes, she carried a binder, furiously searching for anything that could back her up. Papers flew everywhere as she sputtered nonsense about visual harmony, community cohesion, and something about how eagles were too aggressive of a symbol. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. The next day, an official HOA citation appeared on my door. The reason? Mailbox exhibits unnecessary grandeur. I actually laughed out loud, but her frustration didn't discourage me. It fueled me. If Karen wanted petty, then I would show her a level of petty she could never hope to match. So I made a list. Lights, polished metal, engraved nameplates, maybe even a tiny fountain. Every idea more ridiculous than the last. And as I started installing the second upgrade, solar-powered accent lighting, I realized something amazing. The neighbors loved it. They walked by smiling, giving thumbs up, cheering me on against our tyrant HOA queen. Karen, of course, loved none of it. But the war was officially escalating. By the end of the week, my mailbox had become the most talked-about landmark in the neighborhood. Not because it was outrageous, though. By now it was starting to look like a miniature national monument, but because of what it represented. Someone finally standing up to Karen. And honestly, people were loving every second of it. One afternoon, I stepped outside to find two of my neighbors, Tom from across the street and Mrs. Delgado from the corner house, admiring the latest upgrade, a sleek, engraved stainless steel nameplate that read, "Deliver with pride." Subtle? Not at all, but absolutely worth it. "That's beautiful," Mrs. Delgado said. About time someone challenged her. Tom nodded. "You're my hero, man. Karen's been trying to find me for my non-regulation lawn gnome for years." A small crowd started gathering. People were taking pictures, sharing laughs, whispering conspiratorially like kids planning a school prank. And just when the atmosphere was at its most cheerful, right, on cue, the air shifted. The murmurs died down. Eyes rolled instinctively. Karen had arrived. She marched toward us with the righteous fury of a queen whose subjects dared to experience joy without her permission. Binder clutched tight, lips pursed, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown of judgment. "What is happening here?" she demanded. "Admiring the mailbox," Tom said with a grin. "You should try it. It might brighten your day." Her eyes narrowed dangerously. She stepped in front of the mailbox, circling it like a villain inspecting the hero's weakness. "This," she announced dramatically, "is the most disruptive, non-uniform, attention-seeking structure I have ever seen in this neighborhood." "Thanks," I replied. "I worked hard on it." Her jaw tightened so hard I thought her sunglasses might snap in half. That night, she went on the offensive. Every neighbor in the HOA received a mass email, 3 pages long, all caps, multiple fonts, accusing me of single-handedly destabilizing the aesthetic balance of the community. She included photos of the mailbox from 5 different angles, like it was evidence from a crime scene, but something she didn't expect happened. People started emailing back, politely at first, then more bluntly. Some pointed out the hypocrisy. Some mentioned her long history of unnecessary complaints. Others flat out said they were tired of living under her miniature dictatorship. Within 24 hours, the email thread had turned into a digital rebellion. Karen tried to regain control, firing off rules, threats, reminders of her so-called authority. But the more she pushed, the more the neighborhood pushed back. And for the first time in her life, Karen was outnumbered. By the time the HOA board scheduled an emergency meeting to address my mailbox, the neighborhood was already buzzing. People were tired of Karen's control, tired of her endless rules, tired of her inventing violations out of thin air. And to everyone's surprise, the emergency meeting quickly turned into something else entirely, a chance to finally hold Karen accountable. But before that meeting took place, I had one last surprise prepared, one final upgrade, the grand finale. I spent the whole morning working quietly, unnoticed. When I finally stepped back and admired the finished product, even I had to admit it was glorious. The mailbox stood tall and polished, lit at night by solar LEDs, decorated with the eagle topper, the engraved plate, and now, a small, elegant stone base. It looked less like a mailbox and more like a tiny memorial to freedom itself. And the best part? Every single addition was technically within HOA rules. Barely, but within. When Karen drove past and saw it, the look on her face was impossible to describe. Shock, rage, confusion, a little betrayal. And something else, defeat. She didn't even get out of her car. She just stared, gripping her steering wheel like she wanted to snap it in half. That evening, the HOA meeting kicked off in the clubhouse. Karen took her place at the front like she always did. Papers ready, outrage ready, voice sharpened like a weapon. But this time, no one was scared. The room was full. Neighbors lined the walls. People who normally stayed quiet now stood with their arms crossed, waiting for their turn. Karen launched into her presentation anyway, complete with slides, highlighted rules, and dramatic sighs. She pointed to photos of my mailbox like it was a national crisis. And when she finished, the room stayed quiet for a moment, until Tom raised his hand. "Karen," he said, "the problem isn't the mailbox, it's you." A wave of murmurs spread. People began listing years of petty fines she issued, times she twisted rules, incidents she exaggerated, how she treated the entire neighborhood like her personal kingdom. The frustration poured out unfiltered, and slowly, Karen's confidence collapsed. Finally, someone motioned for a vote to remove her from the HOA board. Hands rose, one by one, row by row, nearly unanimous. Karen didn't speak. She just gathered her binder, her precious binder, and stormed out of the clubhouse. The next morning, I stepped outside to find a note taped to my mailbox. No insults, no threats, just 4 words. "I resign," effective immediately. And just like that, the war ended. If you loved watching Karen lose it over this mailbox, hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment telling us what you would do if this happened in your neighborhood.